This presentation is entitled Everything You've Always Wanted to Know About WebSDR, but We're Afraid to Ask. I'm Dan, November Alpha 1, November Alpha, and my radio interest dates back to 1967. As an 8th grader, I brought the world into my upstairs bedroom using a very old, very tired Hammarland HQ-110C. And then later on, when I started high school, I was fortunate to meet my Elmer, the guy who taught me about amateur radio, Lloyd Tisdall, W7FSP, who's a silent key now. And with W7FSP's help, I studied for my novice license. And in 1969, I became WN7LSF. And my first station was a Heathkit DX60B, which was a 75-watt CW-only transmitter, a Drake 2C receiver, which was an excellent receiver, an 80-40 meter trapped dipole at about 40 feet, and I had a homebrew 2-element 15-meter beam on the roof of my house. You can see pictures of all of these things on my QRZ.com page. Just go to QRZ.com and select NA1NA, and you'll see some pictures. Now, many of you started exactly the same way. Some of you built crystal radios, some of you came from the CB world, some from military radio, and so on. But all of us share one thing in common, and that's the love of radio communications. So let's fast forward to right now, tonight. Would you love to have several serious, and I mean serious, receivers at your fingertips with big antennas, receivers that cover the low frequency, medium frequency, HF, and VHF spectrum, which includes, but not limited to, all the ham radio bands, shortwave broadcasting, AM broadcast, military point-to-point, air traffic control, and so on? These receivers are available to you at no cost. There is no software to download, and if you are hearing me right now, you already own the most important piece of equipment that you need, which is a computer with an internet connection. So maybe the first question should be, what is a WebSDR? And the answer is simple. It's a receiver, just as you would think, with electronic components connected to an antenna, but supplemented with software that's designed by Peter Turek, PA3FWM. And then the audio from the receiver is fed to the internet. And the cool thing is that you get a waterfall just like you are familiar with on HS4. In fact, you know what? You're going to feel right at home when you look at a WebSDR. So now the question is, okay, this sounds like fun. So where can I find these WebSDR, these web software-defined receivers? And there are many all around the world. But let's just start with one. When you have time, or if you're listening to me right now and you have multiple screens, go to your, I use Google, but go to your favorite browser and type in Utah, like the state of Utah, Utah WebSDR, Utah WebSDR. And what you'll see is a number of links that you can pick, and you want to pick the one that says Northern Utah WebSDR #1. Click on that, and you're on a WebSDR. Now, on this site, on the Northern Utah #1 site, because Northern Utah has 3 receivers, depending on the frequency that you want to listen to. On the Northern Utah Web SDR #1, you'll see that there are several other available SDRs. They include the Half Moon Bay in Half Moon Bay, California, W7RNA in Sedona, Arizona, K3FEF in Milford, Pennsylvania, and NA5B, which is near Washington, D.C. And I'll give you a short story about NA5B. So recently, the Washington Capitals and the Las Vegas Knights were in the finals of the Stanley Cup. So I'm at work figuring out how can I listen to the games when they're on the air. Well, I have my cell phone with me, and there's an Android version of WebSDR, so you can listen on your cell phone. And so I go to the NA5B site, which is near Washington, D.C., because I'm figuring on the AM broadcast band in Washington, D.C., there's got to be some AM station that's carrying the Stanley Cup playoffs. And sure enough, found one on 1500 kilohertz, big signal on the Utah, on the NA5B WebSDR, and I listened to every game. And Wayne, 9HS4755, would cheer me on when number 8, Ovechkin, scored a goal. Anyway, Washington goes on to win the Stanley Cup, and all is wonderful with me. And it's the use of NA5B that allowed me to listen to those games. There's other ways to do it, of course, but that's just a great example of using a WebSDR. On Friday mornings, I'm on an old timers net with some good friends. W7TYN in Portland, Oregon, W7ARO in Butte, Montana, W7YKN in Reno, and me. And depending on propagation, and we all know that 40 meters has been interesting lately because we're down at the bottom of the sunspot cycle, it's hard sometimes to hear all of us direct. But the cool thing is that we all put good signals into the Northern Utah WebSDR. So I have two screens up and running. I have my HF rig in front of me, and then I have the Northern Utah #1 SDR up and running too, and I'm listening on both of those to see which one is hearing the stations that I want to talk to much better than me direct. And it works extremely, extremely well. So Google Utah WebSDR, go to the Northern Utah WebSDR, #1 is your choice, and you'll see you can look around. There's technical information. There's how to use the SDR. There's all kinds of help right there. Now, there are a couple problems. First of all, I run Windows 10, and Windows 10 users need to have either Java, you must have the current version of Java, or you must be able to view HTML pages. And either of those, if you're a Windows 10 user, no big deal. Java sometimes interrupts the audio stream. There's a problem between the two pieces of software, but on all of the WebSDR sites, there's workarounds to go to the Java software and create the proper security certificate. That's really the problem. It's easy to do. And if you have problems hearing the audio from the WebSDR, I can help you through that. Easiest way maybe is to click to HTML. Anyway, I'm sure that some of the other platforms such as Apple OS, Linux, and so on also work. Most of the WebSDR software is running on Linux anyway, so I'm sure those other platforms work as well, but I have no knowledge of those. I don't use that. I use Windows 10. And as I mentioned, there's a problem with using Chrome as a browser with Windows 10. It's mainly the audio problem, but the Utah web page has more information on how to fix the audio. And by the way, I use Firefox as a browser for my SDR listening. It's the only thing I use Firefox for. That's a very good browser. I just like Chrome for other stuff, but Firefox will work extremely, extremely well. So that's just a little bit about WebSDR and all of these that are available. On the Utah site, there's a link that will show you every available WebSDR all across the world. I encourage you to go in, take a look, listen, find the frequencies and things that you like to listen to, bookmark those receivers, and go back to them time and time again. Again, I'm Dan, NA1NA, and I'll be available for any questions or comments. You can, on HamSphere, you can PM a message to me. I'll be glad on the When Wayne posts this information on Facebook, we'll list my email address. You can send me an email direct if you like, but I'd be glad to help if you have any problems with WebSDR. So that's it. Enjoy and happy listening. 73 from Dan, A1NA.